What if the person you loved most was secretly plotting to destroy you, and the only warning you had was a dog that wouldn't stop growling? Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell us where in the world you're watching from. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss stories like this one. Trust me, you'll want to stay till the very end for this twist. Jake had always believed in love. The kind of love you see in movies. The kind that makes you want to be better, do better, and build a life with someone who sees you for who you truly are. He was a successful man, not the kind who flaunted his wealth, but the kind who worked hard, invested wisely, and found himself comfortable before he turned 30. He had a beautiful apartment in the city, a thriving business, and respect from everyone who knew him. But none of that mattered to Jake as much as Lily. Lily was, how do you describe someone who takes your breath away every time you see them? She was beautiful, yes, with long dark hair that caught the sunlight, eyes that sparkled when she laughed, and a smile that could make you forget every worry you'd ever had. But it wasn't just her looks. It was the way she listened when he spoke, the way she touched his arm when they walked together, the way she made him feel like he was the only man in the world. They met at a charity event 2 years before their wedding day. Jake had been there out of obligation, writing checks and shaking hands, when he saw her across the room. She was volunteering, serving drinks with a genuine smile that stood out among all the forced politeness of the wealthy crowd. He approached her, they talked, and by the end of the night, Jake knew something had shifted in his universe. Their relationship moved quickly. Within months, they were inseparable. Lily moved into his apartment. They traveled together, dreamed together, and planned a future that seemed so bright, Jake sometimes had to squint just to look at it. He proposed on a beach at sunset, cliché, he knew, but Lily cried happy tears and said yes, and that was all that mattered. There was just one problem. Bruno. Bruno was Lily's dog, a large German shepherd with intelligent eyes and a protective streak a mile wide. Lily had owned him since he was a puppy, and she loved that dog more than anything. He's been with me through everything, she'd tell Jake. He's family. Jake respected that. He loved animals. He wanted to love Bruno. But Bruno hated him. Every single time Jake came near Lily, Bruno would growl. Not a playful growl, a deep, guttural warning that came from somewhere primal. If Jake tried to kiss Lily, Bruno would bark. If Jake put his arm around her on the couch, Bruno would position himself between them, teeth slightly bared. If Jake dared to lean in for an embrace, Bruno would snap, never quite making contact, but close enough to make Jake's heart race. He's just protective, Lily would say, laughing it off while pulling Bruno back. He doesn't trust men easily. My ex-boyfriend used to complain about it too. Give him time, baby. He'll warm up to you. Jake tried everything. He bought Bruno expensive treats. He took him for walks. He spoke to him in soft, friendly tones and gave him space. He read articles about gaining a dog's trust. He consulted a trainer who suggested patience and consistency. Nothing worked. Maybe he senses something, Jake's best friend Marcus suggested one night over drinks. They were at their usual bar, 6 weeks before the wedding. Senses what? Jake asked, nursing his beer. Marcus shrugged. Dogs are intuitive, man. They pick up on things we don't. Energy, intentions, I don't know. My aunt's dog used to bark at her husband before they found out he was cheating. Jake laughed, but it was hollow. Lily's not cheating on me, Marcus. Bruno just doesn't like men. She told me her ex dealt with the same thing. If you say so, Marcus said, but his eyes held doubt. Jake pushed the thought away. He was being paranoid. Bruno was just a dog, a protective dog who needed more time. And Lily? Lily loved him. She told him every day. She showed him in 1,000 little ways. She was planning their wedding with such excitement, such attention to detail. She talked about their future children, about growing old together, about building a life that would make all the struggles worth it. Jake trusted her completely. Maybe that was his first mistake. The wedding day arrived like a dream wrapped in sunlight. The venue was perfect, a garden estate just outside the city, with white roses climbing up trellises and soft music floating through the air. Guests arrived in their finest clothes, smiling and chatting as they took their seats. The weather cooperated beautifully, giving them a sky so blue it looked painted. Jake stood in the groom's preparation room, adjusting his tie for the 5th time. His hands were shaking, not from doubt, but from anticipation. In less than an hour, he would marry the woman he loved. He would stand before everyone who mattered and promise her forever. And he meant it with every fiber of his being. Marcus knocked on the door and stuck his head in. You ready, man? You look like you're about to jump out of your skin. I'm ready, Jake said, grinning. I've been ready for 2 years. Good. Because there's no backing out now. Lily looks absolutely stunning, by the way. I caught a glimpse of her dress. You're a lucky man. I know, Jake said softly. I know. Marcus left to take his place, and Jake took a moment alone. He looked at himself in the mirror, really looked. He saw a man on the verge of everything he'd ever wanted. A man who believed in love, in trust, in building something real with another person. He didn't know he was looking at a man whose entire world was about to shatter. Jake stepped out of the room, planning to head toward the ceremony space. But as he walked down the hallway of the estate, he heard a voice. Lily's voice. She was on her phone, tucked away in a small side room with the door slightly ajar. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop. He was just walking by. But then he heard his name. Jake doesn't suspect a thing, Lily said, her voice cold in a way he'd never heard before. God, Sarah, I can't believe I actually pulled this off. 2 years of playing the loving girlfriend, and in 30 minutes, I'll be his wife. Jake froze. His feet stopped moving. His heart stopped beating. Yes, I'm sure, Lily continued, irritation creeping into her tone. The prenup was weak, his lawyer was an idiot. Once we're married for 3 years, I can divorce him and take half of everything. The house, the business, the investments, all of it. I've already talked to my lawyer. It's airtight. The hallway tilted. Jake grabbed the wall for support. Do I feel bad? Lily laughed, actually laughed. Are you kidding? He's boring, Sarah. So boring. All he wants to do is stay home and talk about feelings and plan quiet weekends. I'm 28 years old. I want to travel, party, actually enjoy my life. His money is the only interesting thing about him. Jake's hand moved to his pocket without him consciously deciding to do it. His phone. He pulled it out with trembling fingers and started recording. Love him? Lily's voice dripped with disgust. No, I don't love him. I never loved him. He's a means to an end. A very wealthy end. Look, I have to go, they're probably looking for me. 3 more hours of pretending, and then the hard part is over. The rest is just waiting out the clock. She hung up. Jake stood in that hallway, recording device still running, and felt something inside him die. It was a physical sensation, like something vital had been cut loose and was floating away from him. The woman he loved, the woman he was about to promise his life to, had just described him as boring. A means to an end. Something to endure. She had never loved him. Not once. Not ever. Bruno knew. The thought crashed through his mind with devastating clarity. That dog had been trying to warn him for 2 years. Bruno had sensed what Jake, in all his hopeful blindness, couldn't see. Lily was a fraud. A beautiful, convincing, heartless fraud. Jake made a decision in that moment. His hand steadied. His breathing slowed. The initial shock hardened into something colder, something more focused. He walked back to his preparation room, connected his phone to the venue's sound system, something he'd arranged so he could play a special song during the reception, and made sure the recording was queued up and ready. Then he walked to the ceremony. The next 20 minutes passed like a fever dream. Jake stood at the altar, Marcus beside him, watching as guests settled into their seats. The music began, that traditional wedding march that's supposed to make everyone feel emotional and hopeful. Lily appeared at the end of the aisle, and Jake had to admit, even knowing what he knew, she was breathtaking. Her dress was perfect. Her smile was radiant. She walked toward him with tears in her eyes, fake tears, he now realized, but convincing nonetheless. She reached the altar and took his hands. Hers were warm and soft. His were ice cold. The officiant began speaking about love and commitment and the sacred bond of marriage. Jake barely heard the words. He was watching Lily's face, seeing it differently now. Seeing the calculation behind her eyes. The performance. When it came time for the vows, Lily spoke first. She talked about how Jake had changed her life, how he made her believe in love again, how she couldn't wait to spend forever with him. Her voice broke at all the right moments. A few guests dabbed at their eyes. Jake almost admired the skill of it. Then it was his turn. Lily, he began, and his voice was steady. Before I say my vows, there's something I need everyone to hear. Something I need you to hear. Confusion flickered across her face. Jake, what? He pulled out his phone and pressed play. Lily's voice filled the garden, crystal clear through the sound system. Jake doesn't suspect a thing. God, Sarah, I can't believe I actually pulled this off. 2 years of playing the loving girlfriend, and in 30 minutes, I'll be his wife. The garden went absolutely silent. 200 people held their breath as Lily's recorded confession continued. The prenup was weak, his lawyer was an idiot. Once we're married for 3 years, I can divorce him and take half of everything. Lily's face drained of all color. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Do I feel bad? Are you kidding? He's boring, Sarah. So boring. His money is the only interesting thing about him. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Someone's mother said, "Oh my God." Marcus whispered, "Holy shit." Love him? No, I don't love him. I never loved him. He's a means to an end. A very wealthy end. The recording ended. For a moment, nobody moved. The garden had become a frozen tableau of shock and disbelief. Then Lily found her voice. Jake, I can explain, that's not, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Jake said quietly. His voice didn't shake. I understand that I almost married someone who sees me as boring. As a bank account with legs. I understand that 2 years of my life, 2 years of genuine love and trust, meant absolutely nothing to you. Tears were streaming down Lily's face now, real ones, but born of embarrassment and rage, not remorse. You bastard, she hissed. You humiliated me. No, Jake said. You humiliated yourself. I just made sure everyone knew the truth. He turned to the guests. I'm sorry you all came for nothing. But better to find out now than 3 years down the line. Thank you for being here. I hope you understand. And then Jake walked away. He walked down that aisle, past the shocked faces and whispered conversations, past the white roses and the beautiful decorations that suddenly seemed like props in a stage play. He walked away from Lily, from the wedding, from the life he'd imagined. Behind him, he could hear Lily screaming. Crying. Making a scene. Her mother was trying to calm her down. Her bridesmaids were in chaos. But Jake didn't look back. Bruno had tried to tell him. For 2 years, that dog had known what Jake refused to see. Now Jake knew too. And everything had changed. The weeks after the wedding that never was felt like living underwater. Everything was muffled, distant, unreal. Jake went through the motions of his daily life, but he wasn't really present. He'd wake up in his apartment, the same apartment he'd shared with Lily, and for a split second, he'd forget. Then reality would crash back in, and the emptiness would swallow him whole. His friends rallied around him. Marcus practically moved in for the first week, making sure Jake ate, making sure he didn't spiral too far into the darkness. You did the right thing, Marcus kept saying. Better to find out before you signed those papers, man. You dodged a bullet. Jake knew that was true. Logically, intellectually, he understood he'd been saved from years of lies and an eventual, devastating divorce. But emotionally? Emotionally, he was destroyed. Because the betrayal wasn't just about the money or the scheming. It was about the fact that he'd given his whole heart to someone who'd never intended to give hers back. He'd been alone the entire time, even when he thought he was building something with someone. One night, about 3 weeks after what should have been his wedding day, Jake stood on his balcony looking out at the city lights. The recording of Lily's phone conversation had gone viral. Someone at the wedding had filmed his revelation and posted it online. Suddenly, Jake was internet famous. The guy who exposed his gold-digger bride at the altar. People he'd never met were calling him a hero. News outlets wanted interviews. His social media exploded with messages from strangers offering support and from women offering other things. It made him sick. Because he realized something in that moment, staring at those distant lights, his money had poisoned everything. It had attracted Lily in the first place. It would attract others just like her. How could he ever trust anyone again? How would he ever know if someone loved him or loved his bank account? The question haunted him through sleepless nights and empty days. Finally, Jake made a decision. He couldn't stay in the city. Everywhere he looked, he saw memories of Lily. The restaurant where they had their first date. The park where they'd walk on Sunday mornings. Even his own apartment felt contaminated by her presence. He needed to start over. Not just a new beginning, a complete reset. 2 months after the wedding, Jake sold his apartment, put his business in the hands of trusted managers, and left the city entirely. He chose a small town 3 hours away, the kind of place where people still knew their neighbors' names, where the main street had local shops instead of chain stores, where life moved at a pace that let you actually breathe. He rented a modest apartment above a bookstore. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, old furniture, a kitchen that had seen better decades. He bought a used pickup truck to replace his luxury sedan. He shopped at thrift stores for clothes. He got a part-time job at a local hardware store, even though he didn't need the money. Jake was playing a role, yes. But it was also freeing. For the first time in years, nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew about his wealth or his business or his viral humiliation. He was just Jake, a quiet guy who'd moved to town, kept to himself, and seemed to be recovering from something difficult. The town accepted him without question. That's what small towns do when you're respectful and kind. And that's where he met Mia. It was a Tuesday afternoon, unseasonably warm for October. Jake was having lunch at the town's only diner, a place called Rosie's that served comfort food and strong coffee. He sat at the counter, eating a turkey sandwich and reading a book, when he heard a voice beside him. "Is this seat taken?" He looked up and saw her. Mia wasn't beautiful in the way Lily had been, there was nothing calculated or performed about her appearance. She wore jeans and a simple blue sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She had freckles across her nose and laugh lines around her eyes, even though she couldn't have been older than 30. She looked real. Genuine. Like someone who smiled because she meant it, not because she wanted something. "It's all yours," Jake said, gesturing to the stool. "Thanks. This place gets packed during lunch rush." She ordered a coffee and a slice of pie, then turned to him with friendly curiosity. "You're new in town, right?" "I'm Mia. I work at the elementary school, third-grade teacher." "Jake," he said, shaking her hand. "Yeah, I moved here a couple months ago. Still getting my bearings." "What brought you to Millbrook?" "Most people are trying to leave small towns, not move to them." Jake had prepared an answer for this question. "Needed a change. The city was getting too much for me. Too fast, too loud. I wanted somewhere I could think." Mia nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Running from something or running toward something?" The question surprised him with its perception. "Both, I think." "That's honest," she said, and her smile was warm. "Well, welcome to Millbrook. It's quiet, but it's a good place to heal. Whatever you're recovering from." They talked for the next hour. Mia was easy to talk to, she asked questions but didn't pry, shared stories about her students, and laughed easily and often. Jake found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't since before, everything. When she finally had to leave to get back to school, Jake realized he genuinely enjoyed the conversation. "Come back to Rosie's sometime," Mia said as she gathered her things. "I'm here most Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's nice to have someone new to talk to." "I will," Jake said, and he meant it. As Mia left, another woman entered the diner and made a beeline for Mia before she could reach the door. Jake couldn't help but overhear their conversation. "Mia. Oh my God, I've been texting you all morning." The woman was younger than Mia, maybe mid-20s, with perfect makeup and designer clothes that stood out in the casual atmosphere of Rosie's. Her voice was loud, her gestures dramatic. "Sorry, Chloe. I was teaching. I can't check my phone during class." "Well, you need to make time. I need your opinion on these wedding invitations. Derek and I cannot agree, and you have better taste than he does." Chloe's eyes swept over Mia critically. "Are those the same jeans you wore last week?" "Mia, honey, you need to update your wardrobe. You're not going to meet anyone dressed like that." Mia's smile tightened. "I'm not really looking to meet anyone right now, Chloe. And these jeans are comfortable." "Comfortable is code for giving up," Chloe said with a laugh that had an edge to it. Then her gaze shifted to Jake, still sitting at the counter. Her eyes traveled from his thrift store jacket to his worn boots, and something dismissive flickered across her face. "Friend of yours?" she asked Mia, not bothering to lower her voice. "We just met. This is Jake. He's new in town." Mia's tone held a warning that Chloe completely ignored. "New in town," Chloe repeated, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Let me guess, coming to Millbrook to find yourself?" She made air quotes around the phrase. "How original." Jake met her gaze steadily. "Something like that." "Well, good luck with that. Not much to find here except boredom and people who've given up on ambition." She turned back to Mia. "Come on, let's get coffee somewhere better. This place smells like grease." "I like it here," Mia said firmly. "And I have to get back to school anyway. I'll text you later about the invitations." Chloe huffed, shot Jake one more dismissive look, and left in a cloud of expensive perfume. Mia turned to Jake with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry about Chloe. Well, she can be a lot." "It's fine," Jake said. "Old friend? Since high school. She's not a bad person, really. Just, very focused on appearances and status. She's marrying a guy whose family owns a chain of car dealerships, and it's gone to her head a bit." "You're very generous," Jake observed. "She was pretty rude to you." Mia shrugged. "She's going through something. Planning a wedding is stressful. I try not to take it personally." As Mia finally left, Jake sat back and processed what had just happened. He'd seen Chloe's type before, many times. The way she'd looked at him when she clocked his poor appearance. The dismissal in her eyes. The casual cruelty disguised as concern for her friend. And Mia had defended him. Gently, but firmly. She hadn't joined in Chloe's mockery or agreed with her assessment. Jake found himself looking forward to next Tuesday. Over the following weeks, Jake became a regular at Rosie's diner. He and Mia fell into an easy friendship. They'd talk about books, about life in Millbrook, about her students and his job at the hardware store. Mia never asked about his past beyond surface details, and Jake appreciated that respect for his privacy. But Chloe was often there too, and each encounter revealed more about her character, and about Mia's. One Thursday, Jake was helping Mia carry some supplies to her car when Chloe appeared in the parking lot, climbing out of a luxury SUV. "Mia, darling." And Jake, was it? Chloe's smile was all teeth and no warmth. "Still in town? I figured you'd have moved on by now. Don't people like you usually drift from place to place?" "People like me?" Jake asked calmly. "You know. No ties, no real job, no prospects." She said it lightly, like she was making a joke, but the judgment was clear. "Chloe," Mia said sharply. "That's enough." "What?" "I'm just being realistic. Look, Jake seems nice enough, but Mia, you have to be careful. You're too trusting. You don't know anything about this guy." "I know he's kind," Mia said. "I know he's a good listener. I know he helped Mrs. Patterson fix her porch last week without being asked and didn't want payment. That tells me everything I need to know." Jake's heart did something strange in his chest. Mia had noticed. She'd been paying attention. Chloe rolled her eyes. "You're such a saint, Mia. Honestly, it's exhausting. Not everyone is a charity case you need to save." "I don't think Jake needs saving," Mia said quietly. "And he's my friend. So please, be respectful." The tension hung in the air for a moment before Chloe backed down with a forced laugh. "Fine, fine. I'm just looking out for you. That's what friends do." After Chloe left, Mia turned to Jake with genuine concern. "I'm really sorry. I don't know what's gotten into her lately. She wasn't always like this." "Money changes people," Jake said softly, thinking of Lily. "Or maybe it just reveals who they always were." "Maybe," Mia said. "But I'd rather believe people can be better than their worst moments." That conversation stayed with Jake for days. Because Mia could have easily agreed with Chloe. She could have distanced herself from the poor drifter who'd wandered into town. Instead, she'd stood up for him. She defended his character based on his actions, not his apparent circumstances. She was passing the test Jake hadn't even consciously set. And somewhere along the way, Jake realized he wasn't just testing anymore. He was falling for her. Really falling. For her kindness, her integrity, her quiet strength. For the way she saw people for who they were, not what they had. He knew he couldn't keep the charade going forever. But he needed to be sure. Absolutely certain. Because he couldn't survive another Lily. The incidents with Chloe continued. At a community barbecue, she made loud comments about Jake's thrift store fashion sense. At the grocery store, she'd stage whisper to Mia about lowering her standards. Once, when Jake offered to help carry her shopping bags, she'd actually recoiled and said, "No thanks, I don't need help from someone who can barely afford his own groceries." Each time, Mia would intervene. Each time, she'd choose kindness over cruelty, substance over surface. And each time, Jake fell a little harder. 6 months into his time in Millbrook, Jake made his decision. He was sure of Mia. Sure of her heart. Sure that what they had was real. It was time to reveal the truth. He planned it carefully. He called his assistant from the city, yes, he still had one, managing his business remotely, and arranged for a very specific kind of arrival. On a Saturday morning, the entire town gathered for the annual Millbrook Harvest Festival. It was the biggest event of the year, with vendors lining Main Street, live music, and everyone coming together to celebrate. Mia had asked Jake to meet her there, and he'd agreed, telling her to look for him around noon. At 11:45 a.m., 3 black luxury cars rolled down Main Street and parked in front of the town square. The sight was so unusual in Millbrook that people stopped what they were doing to stare. The doors opened, and men in suits stepped out. Then Jake emerged from the middle car, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The crowd went silent. Jake walked to the center of the square where a small stage had been set up for announcements. He climbed the steps, and someone handed him a microphone. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" His voice boomed through the speakers. The whole festival turned to look at him. He could see faces he'd come to know, the hardware store owner, Mrs. Patterson, Rosie from the diner. And Mia, standing near a craft booth, her face a picture of confusion. And Chloe, jaw literally hanging open. "My name is Jake Morrison," he began. "Some of you know me as the guy who moved here 6 months ago, took a job at the hardware store, and tried to fit into your wonderful community. What you don't know is that I came here under false pretenses." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I came here pretending to be poor. Pretending to be struggling. Because I'd been betrayed by someone I loved who only wanted my money. And I needed to know if it was possible for someone to care about me for who I am, not what I have." He looked directly at Mia now. Her hand was over her mouth, tears already forming in her eyes. "I came here to test people. To see who would be kind to someone they thought had nothing. To see who would judge me based on my character instead of my bank account." His voice softened. "And one person passed that test every single day." Jake stepped down from the stage and walked toward Mia. The crowd parted like water. Mia, he said, standing before her now. You defended me when others mocked me. You valued my friendship when others dismissed me. You saw me, really saw me, when I was pretending to be someone else. And the truth is, I wasn't really pretending. That person you got to know? That's who I actually am. The money is real, but it's not me. It's just something I have. He pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee. The entire festival gasped. Mia Richardson, you have the kindest heart of anyone I've ever met. You make me want to be better. You make me believe that real love exists, the kind that can't be bought or faked. Would you marry me? Tears were streaming down Mia's face. Jake, you lied to me. I did, he admitted. And I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. But I was scared. I'd been fooled before, and I couldn't go through that again. But Mia, everything else was real. Every conversation, every moment, every feeling, that was all real. Mia looked at him for a long moment. The whole town held its breath. Then she smiled through her tears. You idiot. I would have loved you if you were actually poor. I already did love you. The money doesn't matter to me at all. So is that a yes? Yes, she laughed, crying harder now. Yes, of course it's yes. Jake slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into an embrace while the entire town erupted in applause and cheers. People were crying, laughing, congratulating them. It was perfect. And then Chloe's voice cut through the celebration like a knife. This is bullshit. Everyone turned to see her pushing through the crowd, her face red with rage. Are you kidding me right now? Chloe screamed, pointing at Jake. You've been rich this whole time? You let me, you made me. She couldn't even finish sentences, she was so furious. Made you what, Chloe? Mia asked quietly. Show your true character? I was just being honest. I was trying to protect you from some drifter. How was I supposed to know he was secretly loaded? That's exactly the point, Jake said calmly. You weren't supposed to know. And your behavior when you thought I had nothing? That told me everything about who you really are. Chloe's face contorted with humiliation and rage. You're both going to regret this. Mia, you're throwing away our friendship for some guy who lied to you. And you. She jabbed a finger at Jake. You're a manipulative asshole who plays games with people. I think you should leave, Chloe, Mia said firmly. I'm sorry our friendship has come to this, but Jake's right. When you thought he had nothing, you treated him like he was nothing. That's not the kind of person I want in my life. Chloe made a sound somewhere between a scream and a sob. She looked around at the crowd, all watching her meltdown with a mixture of pity and disapproval, and seemed to realize how she looked. Fine, she shouted. Fine. Enjoy your little fairy tale. We'll see how long it lasts when reality sets in. She stormed off toward her SUV, fumbling with her keys, and peeled out of the parking lot with a screech of tires. An uncomfortable silence fell over the festival. Then Mrs. Patterson's voice rang out, well, she certainly made an exit. Now, who wants pie? This is still a celebration. The tension broke, and laughter rippled through the crowd. People returned to celebrating, to congratulating Jake and Mia, to asking questions and sharing in the joy of the moment. An hour later, after the initial excitement had died down and people had returned to their festival activities, Jake and Mia sat together on a bench overlooking the town square. The ring sparkled on her finger. I still can't believe this, Mia said softly. It feels like a movie. A weird movie, Jake agreed. I'm sorry I lied to you, Mia. Really. It was wrong. I understand why you did it, she said. You were hurt. Someone betrayed you badly, didn't they? Jake nodded and told her about Lily. About the wedding that never was. About Bruno, the dog who'd tried to warn him. Mia listened without interrupting, her hand in his. That's awful, she whispered when he finished. I'm so sorry you went through that. It led me here, Jake said. To you. So maybe it was worth it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the festival continue around them. Then Jake stiffened. What's wrong? Mia asked, following his gaze. A woman had entered the square carrying cleaning supplies. She wore a uniform from the janitorial company that the town had hired for the festival. Her hair was pulled back severely, and exhaustion lined her face. She looked older than her years, worn down by life and circumstance. It was Lily. Jake's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't seen or heard from her since the wedding. He'd assumed she'd moved on, found some other target, continued her schemes elsewhere. He never imagined he'd see her like this. Lily was methodically cleaning up trash, dumping it into a large bag, when she glanced up and saw him. Their eyes met across the square. The recognition that flooded her face was devastating. Shock, shame, horror, and something that might have been grief all crashed together. She saw Jake, really saw him, in his expensive suit, with Mia beside him wearing an engagement ring, surrounded by people who were genuinely happy for them. She saw everything she could have had if she'd been a different person. For a moment, neither of them moved. The festival continued around them, oblivious to the silent confrontation happening. Then Lily dropped her cleaning bag and ran. Just turned and fled, disappearing into the crowd and then beyond it, unable to face what she'd lost through her own greed and deception. Mia had caught the exchange. Was that? Yeah, Jake said quietly. That was Lily. She looked. Mia searched for the right word. Broken. Maybe she is, Jake said. Maybe that's what happens when you build your life on lies and manipulation. It all falls apart eventually. He turned away from where Lily had disappeared and looked at Mia instead, at her kind eyes, her genuine smile, the woman who had loved him when she thought he had nothing. Or maybe, he continued, that's what happens when you realize too late that you threw away something real for something that was never worth having in the first place. Mia squeezed his hand. I'm glad you found your way here, Jake. I'm glad you found me. So am I, he said, and he meant it with everything in him. Bruno had known all along. That growl, that constant warning, had been the universe trying to tell Jake what he refused to see. Now, sitting in a town square with a woman who loved him for who he actually was, Jake finally understood the lesson. Real love can't be bought. It can't be faked. It can't be performed or rehearsed or manipulated into existence. Real love is found in the quiet moments. In the way someone defends you when you're not there to hear it. In the way they value your character over your bank account. In the way they choose kindness when cruelty would be easier. Jake had been tested by betrayal and had almost lost his faith in people entirely. But by testing others, he'd found someone who needed no test at all. Someone whose goodness shone through regardless of what she thought he could offer her. As the sun began to set over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Jake pulled Mia closer. Around them, their town, yes, he thought of it as his town now, celebrated with music and laughter and the warm comfort of community. Somewhere out there, Lily was dealing with the consequences of her choices. Somewhere, Chloe was nursing her wounded pride and shallow values. But here, in this moment, Jake was exactly where he needed to be. With someone who had loved him when she thought he was nobody special. Which was how he knew, with absolute certainty, that she loved him for exactly the right reasons. Bruno would have approved. And that's Jake's story, a tale of betrayal, redemption, and finding real love in the most unexpected places. Sometimes we have to lose everything to discover what truly matters. Sometimes the people who seem to have nothing teach us the most about having everything. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of love, betrayal, and second chances. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever had to test someone's true character? How did you know they were genuine? And what would you have done in Jake's situation? Share this video with someone who needs to remember that real love exists, the kind that sees past the surface to the person underneath. Next time, we'll explore another story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust and loyalty. You won't want to miss it. Until then, remember, the people who love you for who you are, not what you have, are the ones worth keeping. And sometimes, a dog knows the truth before we're ready to see it. This has been your story. Thanks for watching.